into in-camera session. And the resolution is that City Council enter into in-camera session to consider the following items pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act. Bullet number 1, in-camera report number CO 2021-16 regarding litigation or potential litigation pursuant to Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act. And bullet number 2, review of the regular in-camera meeting minutes of September 27th, 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Feeney and Councillor Thompson, all in favor? It's carried. We'll see you in the SMB room. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our October 12th, 2021 regular meeting of Belleville City Council. For those watching on the city streaming service or on our YouTube channel or on your TV, I would point out that our agenda and all the reports for today's meeting are on the city website at www.belleville.ca, and you can find them under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting video icon on the left side of the screen. If you click on that icon, and then go to October 12th on the calendar, it'll bring you to the agenda for today's meeting. There is a hyperlink embedded in the agenda in the event that you wish to look at the reports that we'll be discussing, so you can follow along. I'll now call the meeting to order and state that we are all present with the exception of Councillor Alsap, and I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services and City Clerk, Mr. Matt McDonald, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So there is an additional item that I'm adding to the agenda under deputations. It'll be 6.2, and I'll speak to it as we get there. Moving back to the agenda, item number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Do any colleagues have any items to declare? No? There are no public meetings today, so I'll ask for motion to confirm the minutes of the special council meeting of September 20th, 2021, the regular council meeting minutes of September 27th, 2021, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of September 27th, 2021. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. So we'll move to deputations, and we'll start with 6.1, and I'll welcome to the podium Ms. Stacey Daub, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Quinte Healthcare. Good afternoon, Ms. Daub, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Panchuk, and hello to all the councillors today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I am very sorry it took me so many months to get here, but I'm here today. My goal today was first and foremost just to introduce myself. I think it's really important that our local municipal leadership knows who their local healthcare leaders are so that we can grow and develop a relationship over time to serve our communities together. My other objective today is just to provide you with a really brief update on Quinte Healthcare and its hospitals and make a couple of requests. They're nothing significant, so you don't have to worry to the end of the presentation. I'm going to be asking for large amounts of dollars. I'm just looking for a renewed partnership, so it's a pretty simple ask, and I'm hoping you'll be okay with it. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge Steve Cook, who is the Executive Director of the Belleville General Hospital Foundation. The Belleville Foundation is an exceptional partner to us, and we couldn't do what we do without him, so I just wanted to acknowledge and thank him for being here today. So, a little bit about Quinte Healthcare and the last 18 months. Many people ask me what it's been like to join an organization in the midst of a pandemic. It's been strange. I usually wear a big button on my shirt with a picture so that the staff and team and patients that I serve can actually see what I look like in the hospital, because I'm not without a mask the entire time I'm in the hospitals. But mostly it's been wonderful. I have never had such a warm and embracing welcome, not only from the staff, the physicians, the nurses, the hospitality team who greets me every night when I leave and asks me how my day is, to the broader community who's made me feel welcomed and supported, including Mayor Panchuk. So let me tell you a little bit about what the last 18 months has been like for the teams that I work with. COVID has been, I think, challenging for everybody. And I often don't want to say to people that, being in healthcare makes it worse or harder. But for our teams, and I see Emma Holmes, who's one of our ICU nurses here, one of the things that they find very difficult is the big disconnect between people walking on the street and what they're experiencing in the hospitals that they serve. And over this last year, they have had to, over the 18 months, they have had to adapt, evolve, and change to the subsequent waves. And the one thing, like all of you know, each wave has been discernibly different. And so they've had to adapt each time to each of those waves. And from my perspective, it is as important for me to support the people who work at Quinte Healthcare as it is the people we are served. And I often say it's as much about caring for our community as it is caring for the people who care for our community. And that's been a bit of an effort. I spent last weekend going around to the 4 hospital sites delivering apples, happened to be from Campbell's, apples to say thank you to them for being there on Thanksgiving and working to serve our communities. So I'm pretty optimistic about actually I'll come back to the second, I'm pretty optimistic about the 4th wave. Our numbers are steady, generally steady in our community. They're relatively low. And so that has really supported us in terms of being able to serve our community. But for most people in healthcare, it doesn't make much of a difference. They still have to come to PPE every day. They still have to believe that each person that they're serving is suffering from COVID. We currently have a steady state of COVID patients who are coming into our hospitals. As you know, this wave of the pandemic is a wave of unvaccinated and younger folks who are coming through, and they will care for them just as they would care for any other person who came through the hospital. So you only have to look to the west to see that relaxing the COVID measures, health measures in terms of both vaccination encouragement as well as social distancing, to see how it can ravage a hospital system, but also the personal impact it can have on patients as well as the community. So I'm very proud of our communities and their steadfast commitment to get high vaccination rates and also continue with social distancing measures and other types of control measures, which I understand some council members learned about in Germany, so I'll be interested to hear that. It's that ongoing relentless management of COVID which is going to help us move forward. Not only are teams dealing with the ongoing admissions of COVID patients, we are also dealing with unprecedented demand. So as soon as Ontario opened, going through the summer, our emergency, I talked to it like a hockey stick. The numbers just went up precipitously and quickly, as well as all of the backlogs. So we have surgical backlogs. Many of you may have friends, neighbors who are waiting for surgeries. Even our own healthcare staff are waiting for their surgeries. We have diagnostic imaging backlogs. So there's no time to rest. We are at those backlogs in addition to trying to support the waves of patients who are coming through. I put this slide up on the imperative of primary care. I'm exceptionally worried about primary care and the absence of it amongst our communities, and the fact that many of our residents and citizens do not have access to a primary care. One of the most notable statistics that I've seen in the last year is that for every 100 babies that are born at Belleville General Hospital, 20 of those babies and their mothers do not have a doctor. They do not have a primary care physician or a nurse practitioner. And I think as a community we need to do better in terms of supporting them. I believe primary care is the heart of a healthcare system in addition to home and community care services, and I am very committed to working in partnership to build a better and stronger primary care system in our community. That may seem odd coming from a hospital CEO who is not in the role of leading a primary healthcare team, but I know that if I don't have a good primary care system by my side, then I can't get people to our hospitals in the time that I need them to get there in terms of diagnostic or surgery. We so depend on them, and I think there's an opportunity for us to work together. Prior to my role at Quinte Healthcare, I was at North York General, and prior to that I was at Headwaters Healthcare Centre, which is in Orangeville. When I arrived in Orangeville, I came upon, through evidence, a fact that was very disconcerting to me. And that was that our medium-sized hospitals across the province, like Belleville General Hospital, like Trenton, like many other, like Headwaters, for years and years and years had disproportionately been funded to serve their communities. I worked with 24 other hospital leaders. We created an advocacy campaign, and this particular government recognized the strength and importance of medium and rural-sized hospitals, committed to $80 million in terms of funding to correct the funding formula and some working capital assessments. Despite what you might read in the newspaper, that is all great news for Quinte Healthcare, but it does not address the erosion that happened for many, many years. So my job is to advocate, work hard to look for efficiencies and better ways to provide care, but my job is also to advocate for rightful investment in this community and the 4 hospitals and communities that I serve, and I intend to do that through the upcoming years. When I talk about the power of partnership and community, it's not just the foundation. We have auxiliary, there's other volunteer services. We couldn't have run all the COVID assessment centers without the paramedics from the County of Hastings. And the power of partnership has never been more visible than through the pandemic. But we need to continue with that partnership, and I am hopeful that I can renew a partnership with all of my municipal partners, not only to think about strengthening our hospital healthcare system, but also to think about population health and wellness, and to do that together. So I have two asks of you today. My first request is really for your continued support to help to grow and strengthen local healthcare services, including making sure we have a strong and vital hospital to serve our community. And that includes continuing to invest and support in capital development and capital equipment, just like we're building a new ICU that is about to open, probably 2 years too late, but we never too late to have that additional capacity in our community, and it will make a remarkable difference in terms of our ability to serve patients. Partnering to plan and advocate for a strong local healthcare system that not only includes strong hospitals, but strong primary care, home care. We need to start to advocate with one voice across all of our communities. I truly believe that oftentimes this region has been left behind from a healthcare perspective. There's so much more we could do. In the last 2 years alone, local cancer services have increased by 60%. That means one less drive for someone down the 401 corridor, either to get chemotherapy or a consultation services. And when I've been out in the community, that's what people have told me. They want their hospitals to be there when they need them, and they want care closer to home. The last area I'm looking for your support is our ability to attract, grow, and retain a large and vibrant community of healthcare heroes. So doctors, nurses, therapists, technicians. We are faced with the biggest health human resource crisis in my lifetime. COVID was a tipping point. It was decades in the making, but we are at a very serious crossroads right now in terms of our ability to recruit and retain. And for some of us, it's the simplest things. It's housing, it's childcare. They love the area, but need our support to make it a place that not only do they want to give back to their communities, but where they can make a difference. My last request is up on the screen, or it was, is our Reimagine Quinte Healthcare campaign. Seems strange maybe to do a longer term strategy in the midst of a pandemic, but our communities, our hospital heroes want an inspirational future that they can aspire to. So we are out in all of our communities asking for their feedback and input on the future of Quinte Healthcare and the hospitals. I will be out in the community in as many venues as are COVID friendly to hear directly from residents. I thank the council for putting some of our surveys on your website, but the more voices that we can have in this planning process, the better our plan will be. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Daub. It's hard to think that this is your first time
It is.
Appearing before us when you've been so active, and we've already got off to such a great start. Thank you for all that you do, but also your entire team. And we're very proud of Quinte Healthcare and our medical facilities. Colleagues, any questions or comments they'd like to pass on to Ms. Daub? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation today. I think just a couple of comments. First of all, I just wanted to say I can't imagine the last 20 months how stressful and the challenges I would think hourly at your facilities with Quinte Healthcare, all four, and thanks to all the staff for that. And the second thing I wanted to say is I had a chance to experience the work of Belleville General Hospital over the last 3 weeks on a personal family situation, and was thoroughly impressed, and still am, with the doctors and the nursing team and everybody involved, and that means a lot to families. I say this sincerely, that we don't always have an opportunity, and I don't want to be going to the hospital, but when you need the services and they're there, and you have a family member that needs that support, it's reassuring, and I think I speak for many families that have had a good experience at one of the hospitals. So that's a comment to the staff. The other thing, we heard this weekend with the news, at the Windsor Regional Hospital, there were 60 staff members. And over Thanksgiving, I had a chance to meet with some family, and that seemed to be top of mind for many people. That was a conversation piece. And I knew you were presenting today. And I just want to know, can you give us some information on where QHC is as far as vaccinations and what could roll out at one of the hospitals, because there's a lot of people watching it right now, and it is a concern to residents.
I would be happy to speak to that. So currently at Quinte Healthcare, we have a 97% vaccination rate for all staff and 99% for physicians. We were steadfast that we would use an empathy lens, a caring and education lens throughout this whole process related to vaccinations, and have been working pretty much since January, first of all, to get vaccinations local to our community, make sure our staff had the opportunity to access them. We have provided education and support, and I think you won't be surprised to hear that inevitably there will be some people at Quinte Healthcare who choose not to be vaccinated, and I respect their choices, so does the organization. But our patients expect that our staff are vaccinated, our staff expect that one another are vaccinated, and it's our responsibility to ensure all of Quinte Healthcare staff are vaccinated. So that's what the path that we're currently on as an organization, and I think it's important for people to know we want every person to be part of the Quinte Healthcare team, and if there's anything we can do to support and help people take that additional step. I will tell you, our Chief of Staff is a remarkable man. For those of you who have not, he personally has escorted and provided support to people to get their vaccinations on a one person at a time, and I think that's pretty exemplary, and that's our intent. But it's hard, you know, just like in all of your families, you have people who have made that choice. It's a very personal choice, and while you wish they had chosen different, you still need to respect them and make the choice that's right for your community and your organization.
All right, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much for coming today. It's appreciated. Sort of more on Councillor Kelly's follow-up, but working together, and I'm thinking more working together with Kingston, the larger hospitals in Belleville, which Kingston provides some further advanced technology. Do you work with them on a very close basis with Kingston so that our patients get moved back and forth on a regular basis?
So I work very closely with David Pecora and Dr. Pecora, who is at Kingston Health Science Center, and I think many people know they've made a renewed commitment to strengthen their partnerships. I do want to make one correction. We have a lot of technology. We have many of the same technologies that Kingston has, and what you couldn't imagine being offered in a community even 3 years ago can very safely be provided at the same level of quality. However, we're working very closely with Kingston, and it is the one thing I hear from residents no matter where I go. What they'll tell me is that if they arrive in Picton with something, they're happy to know that that hospital is there, or Belleville, that it's there for them, and that they know they can get to Kingston in a seamless way if it's required. So we've heard many, many stories about cardiac patients and other types of patients, trauma, you name it. The system works from that perspective. And we need to continue to grow and develop that relationship, not only to see the rightful transition of patients when they need to go to Kingston, but also investment in our community to build up services and to take some of the pressure off the larger tertiary and academic centers. And we need to work at both. The last thing we are working with them on is a clinical transformation system that will see us all go on one health record for this entire region. I can't overemphasize the difference that's going to make to the quality of care we provide, but also the patient's experience, so that patients' records will follow them wherever they go. You won't have to retell your story. You don't have to be worried that you're here, that someone might know. So we have many things underway with Kingston, and I expect to grow that partnership over time.
That's really where I was trying to get at, is the records, how they are kept, and you don't fear when you go from one. And when I refer to Kingston having some other technology, I was thinking more in the heart situation.
That's right.
Where I had to deal with it. Also, the last question on nursing. Do you have a problem hiring enough nurses?
Absolutely. We, not unlike other hospitals, as I mentioned, are being faced with a health human resource shortage that has been, in my opinion, decades in the making. Nurses in this last year, they're exhausted. We're seeing triple cohorts of people retiring. We're seeing some nurses making other life-changing life decisions. We have recently seen some moves from the ministry to reinvest in these professions, both in the value of them, but also academically. One critical area is Loyalist. We have developed a very strong partnership with Loyalist, And I don't know if many of you know, but years ago, well, the way the program currently works is people split their time between Belleville and Niagara in terms of their nursing education. And what inevitably happens, if they go to Niagara in the second round of their training, they end up staying there. So we've been working with Loyalist. Loyalist is pursuing a full-time program here where you come and graduate locally, and we see that as critical. There's been other things the ministry has invested in, free training for personal support workers. That has been a game changer for the ability to hire locally. So we not only need, our first and foremost effort though has to be on retaining the people we have. We often forget that we have to invest as much in the people who are already here as bringing in new people. I made reference, we had 3 applicants in the last week who could not come here because of housing and childcare and chose to go into 2 different cities because of that. So that's back to my request. We need to partner not only to make our healthcare services stronger, but also that ability to attract and retain health human resources here. I think we have all the physical beauty of the area. We have the welcoming people. Now we have to make it a place that people want to grow their careers and grow their families together.
Thank you very much. It's interesting you mentioned housing being an issue, and that's been an issue. Thank you.
Right, anyone else? Well, Ms. Dobb, thank you very much for coming. It has been great to work with you thus far. Quinte Healthcare is in good hands, and you and your leadership team have been doing a great job. I want to remind everybody that there is that request for information. There's a questionnaire that we've been asked to fill out. I've done mine.
Great.
You know, as a growing community, we want to see Quinte Healthcare grow in terms of the services that are being offered along the lines that Councillor Kelly and Councillor Thompson spoke about. And it's important for all of us to go on and to give that input. You know, we really are lucky to be here in the Quinte region. Belleville General, the Quinte West Hospital, Prince Edward County, Bancroft. It doesn't matter where those services are offered. We just want more of them in that catchment area. So thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much for coming today, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
All the best. So my colleagues, the resolution is that the deputation by Stacey Dobb, President and CEO of Quinte Healthcare, introducing Quinte Healthcare's new strategic plan engagement process, be received. Can I get a mover second? Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. And so item 6.2 is a deputation from Hardik Patel and Anjiri Surilia. I'll ask them to come forward. They're going to be coming forward to talk about the first Belleville Diwali Festival. So come on up to the podium, please, and welcome.
So, welcome everyone. Namaste. This is our way of greeting everyone in Hindi. This is my first time, so I'm sorry if I mess up, but I'm so glad to be here today and to express my feeling on how Belleville is helping to do this event. This is the first ever Diwali event, which we do every year. So Diwali is a festival that we celebrate every year. It's a 5-day long festival. And in every people in India, no matter what religion is, they celebrate this festival. And as you know that India is a diverse land of many religions, more than 28 religions are there in the country. And there are different languages, but apart from that, it's the one festival which we celebrate as Christmas. It's the festival of lights. And when Lord Ram and Goddess Sita came home after 14 years of exile, defeating an evil spirit, so the main motto of this festival is to empower and to ignite the light within yourself and defeat the darkness. So that is what we do, and Sean Kelly, he is helping us really well. From 2 months, our energies are synchronized, and it's been ups and downs, many things we are working out right now. And for the decoration, for how the event's gonna be, so I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough on what's decided until now. Right now, we will start with Indian Bollywood dance performances, with all the Indian traditional clothes. And there will be Indian singers who is going to perform at the event. The students will share their ideas, and students will share how they celebrate festival back home. So it will be a walk down to their memory. Like, it would be emotional as well, because it's the first time they are celebrating here. Loyalist college student, they are never getting chance of doing something grand here. So that's what we are making it happen, to make them feel home. And in terms of City of Belleville, we want to show everyone how we celebrate the festival, how much colorful it would be, what lights, like how much energetic it would be. So it's gonna be a compact 3 to 4 hours even, that we want to show to the people of City of Belleville, so that they can join us and have some insights on what we do on this day.
Thanks, Anjani. I've seen a lot of similar faces, not just physically, just on social media through. So some of the faces are still familiar with me, but it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for a warm invitation. Sorry, I still can't believe I'm standing in front of you guys. So it's such a really, it's such a, it was such a dream for me when I just, first of all, my name is Hardik, and currently I work for Hastings County, but I've been working for Lawless College since last 3 years as a president of student government. I was also part of residents and all stuff during the COVID. Then after I was serving Lawless as an international student leader for a meanwhile. Then after, I'm glad that Sean just picked me up from social media. So currently, like, especially according to this event, it's called Diwali. And in Diwali, we got a colorful clothes, and the students and the community people will wear colorful dresses. They'll do dancing, they'll do singings. Although everything will be in a traditional way. And thank you so much for City of Belleville. Thank you so much, all of you, the council members, for such a big grant for our event, because I did never think about this event will occur in official way throughout the Belleville, right? Because in last 3 years, I was doing small events for our community and international students, but it was just in a smaller way. But this event's gonna be a boom for City of Belleville, especially for the students, because there are tons of different colleges and cities around the Ontario, right? But Belleville is right now in eye of all of the different nearby places, and also the Toronto, because some of the students are still changing their college from Toronto to the Belleville. So Belleville is getting a lot of international students this year, and this Diwali will be a very huge impact on them, on their views, right? Because I still remember when I came in 2018, I was in a contact with Lawless College, also the city, few city councils members as well as, but at that time I didn't never think about this event will occur in a very huge manner, right? For this event, we are getting a support from everyone, not just international students. We are getting support from council's member. We are getting a big support from City of Belleville. We are getting big support of Bay of Quinte, especially from the Lawless College as well as. We are getting 25 to 30 volunteers from Lawless College. And a big thank you for the Anne Mary, who is the president of Lawless College. She's doing her best to just get volunteers in this event, so we can definitely make this event as successful as we all are thinking about it. And because of this COVID-19, we do have a lot of restriction, everything's going around, but a big thanks to Sean Kelly and Sheila Alexander for making everything as smooth as it seems like it's a normal event. Because if anyone wants to organize event in COVID-19, they have to go through the different steps, they have to go through a lot of documents and everything. But I still remember last night I got a text from Sean and Sheila, and I am 110% sure they are not getting paid for that hours, right? Because if they are texting me at 9 o'clock, CD won't pay for 9 o'clock, right, at the night. So they are doing their volunteer stuff, we are doing our volunteer stuff from our side. Lawless is a big part of this event as well as. So being part of this Diwali community has been so rewarding, and I have been meeting new people, a very good connection, a very big heads over here. So it's such a very tremendous moment for all of us, all of our international students. So it's been such a great for us to have such a wonderful welcome, such a wonderful, you can say, the support from community. And for me personally, I've got a lot of support from community. I've got a lot of support from city of Belleville. So I would like to say a big thank you, especially when someone just greet us, someone just do favor for us. We always do this kind of stuff. This is called pranam. And thank you so much, everyone, each and every seat over here for welcoming us and giving us a chance to represent our community in front of not just international students, not just in front of the community, but in front of city of Belleville. And I'm sure if this event will occur on the Sunday, 17th of October, I am 110% sure they'll hear our DJ sound till Toronto. I'm 110% sure of that. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming today. So just to make sure that we're very clear, so this event is on Sunday, October the 17th, so this coming Sunday. The whole community is invited to it. What time does it start at?
It will start at 3 p.m. and it will end up at 7 p.m.
Okay, so 3 p.m. Here in Market Square, right behind City Hall. And there will be some Bollywood dancers, as we heard, and there will be some food available for people.
We are trying our best to get food into this event, but we are also trying to keep track on the COVID rules and regulation. So we are trying to get only packed food. If it will be there, it will be under COVID all restriction. Right. So we are still waiting for Sean Kelly to get approved from health minister and everyone, because he's the man. He's the man for this event, right? Right? So we are waiting for his approval. Once we'll get the approval, we'll go through the food and everything. But still, we do have sparkles. We do have colorful lights. We have food. We are trying to get sweets, our international sweets, into this event. And it will be packed, right? It will be from Practitioner, so it won't be an open food. So still we are waiting for approval, but once we'll try to get everything as much as into the COVID regulations. And yeah, so yeah, that's everything about the food.
So there'll be entertainment, there'll be food, COVID-safe food, so prepackaged.
Yep.
And then if people want to learn more about the Indian culture or cultures, there'll be people there that can explain what the meaning is behind the colorful dress, what the Festival of Lights, and all these things talk about. And we'd encourage people to bring their families to be able to learn more about that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So Sunday, October the 17th, Market Square, immediately behind Belleville City Hall, and it starts at 3 o'clock, and it will run approximately 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yes.
Excellent, good. Colleagues, anyone have any questions or any comments? Certainly, we all want to thank Councillor Kelly for his leadership on this through the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee and all the fantastic work. What I want to say, though, is that we really are very pleased about this, because we want to provide a big welcome to all the international students that are at Loyalist College that have come during these very difficult times where you haven't been able to travel home. We want you to feel that this is your home, and we welcome you. I remember meeting you, Hardik, for the first time in early 2019 at the International Students' Day at Loyalist College, where Mayor Harrison and myself were there, and we had a chance to meet with the large number of international students we have at Loyalist. And we're very proud that you've chosen our community, and we're very proud that you care enough to put on this year's Diwali Festival. So thank you very much. Lots of success. I look forward to attending and taking part of it. And thank you very much for coming here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
So, colleagues, the resolution will be that the deputation by Anjari Suilia and Hardik Patel introducing the first Belleville Diwali Festival on October the 17th be received. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. There is no correspondence today, so item number 8 is a motion to go into committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Can I get a motion for that, please? Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll move now to 8A reports, where the agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from Council. And we have one under this category, 8A1, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce report regarding hometown hockey returns to Belleville. It is the Belleville Chamber of Commerce Special Events Contract Report, and the resolution is that the assistance requested by the Belleville Chamber of Commerce for the coordination of services required by the city to host Rogers Hometown Hockey October 30th to November 1st, 2021, with setup from October 25th, as set out in the report, be approved and referred to staff, and that the City of Belleville will pay all municipal building permit, signage, and licensing fees for this event. Can I get a mover in a second? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Sandison. Great. Ms. Bove is here to answer any questions. We made an announcement about this at the last council meeting about this event coming. Does anyone have any questions or any comments on it? All right, seeing none, I just have one item I do want to highlight on this. If you look at the budget also does refer to the 2021 Santa Claus Parade. And our expectation that this parade will be back on the street rather than the drive-by format that we had there. That budget allows for some increased security presence just to ensure that all COVID-19 health protocols are in place. More information will be coming, we expect, at the next council meeting, but this is, the Chamber is providing both of those events for us, and we're very lucky to have them do so. The motion's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we'll now move to 8B, consent items, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'll go around the table, starting with Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Councillor Sandison.
8B1 and 8B8.
I have the same ones as Bill Sanderson.
Just a second, I'll get to everybody. So, Councillor Thompson.
8B1, 8B5, 8B8, 8B10.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
8B1 and 8B8, please.
Okay, they're already pulled. Councillor Feeney, you said your items are being pulled already?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Millette.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. 8B4 for me, please.
All right, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Mine have been pulled, thank you.
Okay. All right, so then the motion I will first deal with is that the following agenda items be approved with the exception of items 8B1, 8B4, 8B5, 8B8, 8B10. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Sandison and Councillor Millette, all in favor, it's carried. Let's start with 8B1, which is use of the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center as a COVID-19 vaccination center. It is the Chief Administrative Officer's report number CAO 2021-15. And the resolution is that the CAO's report number CAO 2021-15, use of Quinte Sports and Wellness Center as a COVID-19 vaccination center, be received. Councillor Sandison's moved it, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Sandison, you raised this item. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Through the chair to the CAO. So I understand and appreciate that we need to set up to be able to vaccinate the children's group age 5 to 11. And so I've got a couple questions. One is what other facilities have been explored? And the second question is that I note that by moving to the sports center, some of the adult times have been cut back. And I'm just wondering if we understand what the impact is on the kids' hockey program.
Through the chair to Councillor Sandison, the first part of your question, I guess, the health unit and Quinte Healthcare throughout COVID have been taking inventory of numerous city facilities, both those that are controlled by the municipality and other facilities, such as the former Quinte Secondary School that the Hastings Prince Edward School Board still controls, where they're doing the testing center. They continue to look at facilities that will work for large-scale vaccination centers. I believe what they've told city staff at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center is they have not found any place that works as efficiently as one of the arenas. As you know, they have relocated from the Family Dental Center arena to the gymnasium as the numbers coming out to the facility began to drop later on in the summer. But they anticipate that with approval for vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds, as well as approval of booster shots for some individuals that are already vaccinated, the demand for vaccinations will far exceed the capacity of the gymnasium, and so they've requested permission to go back into the Family Dental Center arena. It will likely be for a 2-month period. However, they don't know when that will be. They're waiting on the approval from Health Canada, and that is their best guess. It will be late this year, but they figure it will take 2 months to vaccinate that cohort of children with 2 shots. So they've looked, but the arena is their best option to get it done as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And then on to your second question, the adjustments that have to be made to ice time have been looked at by staff at the sports center. They can accommodate the move of the vaccine clinic back to the arena and not have any impact on minor hockey. Both Belleville minor hockey and Belleville and District girls minor hockey. What it does have an impact on, though, is adult recreational users. So beer league hockey, as they say, and things like that will be limited to probably the 10 p.m. slot, and that will cause some to have less ice time during that 2 months that the arena is in use as a vaccine clinic.
All right, anyone else on this item? Councillor Kelly. There we go.
Through you, Mayor. I spoke to Vice President of Minor Hockey with Belleville. His name is Brad Reitzel, and when we got this information in our agenda and there was talk of this happening at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, you know, Mr. Reitzel talked about some of the challenges that hockey will have when and if this does move forward. There's, just to kind of give you the lay of the land, there's 700 players. Each kid pays $525. Volunteers really are the backbone of minor hockey in any community. And the FDC, which is the family arena, Family Dental Center arena, minor hockey books 37 hours a week there. Sunday 12 hours, Saturday 10, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday 5 each day. And I was speaking to Mr. Reitzel because I'm also a board member with the Health Center, Hastings Prince Edward Public Health, and we both value that kids age 5 to 11 are going to be getting the vaccine, and that's part of the strategy to get through this pandemic so we don't have these stoppages in play. And just hoping that the volunteers and parents and the players with minor hockey can be patient. We heard from Mr. Beauvais tonight that other facilities were looked at, but one of the concerns that minor hockey had, and there's more than just hockey there, there's the Belleville Bearcats and the Adult League. Belleville Minor Hockey spends about $500,000 a year on rentals for the facility. The only concern that they had, if it's closed for 2 weeks, they believe it could be another 2 weeks to start up by getting the ice back into the FDC and getting the cooling system. I said I would ask that tonight, but I think the parents and Minor Hockey Association and all the volunteers, they're just getting starting after really having a lot of struggles, but I believe that we have to do this for the 5 to 11-year-olds, and it's part of the health next stages for Hastings Prince Edward Public Health. So I just wanted to kind of address some of their concerns, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think most of it's been covered. But you said about the 2 months that's going to be used for the clinic. Now, is that already set, that the 2 months? My concern is if they don't do this, if they don't pre-book the 2 months, it could end up being closed for 3 or 4 months if we're not know the exact dates, so the minor hockey can work around that.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, I mean, we've all experienced what this pandemic has done to deadlines. They're non-existent when it comes to pandemics. So that's the best estimate that the health unit has provided in terms of the time it will take to get the mass of that cohort vaccinated. And then, once they've got through that rush, that mass of people, of children, they'll be able to go back to the gymnasium and continue on as they carry forward with booster shots for the remainder of the population as they become approved. So their best guess is 2 months, but it is just an estimate at this time. So, the Sports Center staff have done a great job throughout this pandemic, reacting to everything that's thrown at them, and I have no doubt at all that they'll be able to get through this, no problem, and they've already set in motion what's necessary to readjust some of those minor hockey ice time requirements and fill them in the 3 remaining ice surfaces that we have there.
With the ice coming out, do they have to take the ice out, or will they have a wooden platform so when it's done, the ice can go back in fairly quickly?
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, I'll stand to be corrected, but certainly during the time that the clinic was in operation there, the ice was out, and I think it probably works better with the ice out for a 2-month period. I don't think you could keep the wooden surface on it that long without damaging the ice underneath anyways. So, the systems are good out there, and so the ice can be put in relatively quickly after that, and it won't take long to get the arena back up to full speed.
Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. And it's great to hear that minor hockey won't be impacted. We've shuffled back and forth between the one rink and the gym, and we have other user groups, and I think some basketball leagues. I know that a few of us have received emails about that. What's the impact on that, in terms of moving back from the arena? I know minor hockey tends to get a lot of focus just simply because it's one of our largest user groups amongst children. But I'm thinking of other sporting events and other physical activities that can be done in the wellness center. The thing that is front of mind for me is, and we hear that the fourth wave here is a little lighter compared to the other ones, and we're seeing things opening up, we're seeing activities restarting. It's the mental health component that we really don't have a handle on in terms of, as a society, as to how this is impacted. And we all know that recreation and physical activity is an important thing, particularly for children who have been isolated at home with schooling online and things of that nature. So what kind of things can we do to mitigate, if they don't need the large arena down the road, what can we do so we're not displacing other sport groups that may not require an ice surface?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, I think that's a good point. The staff at the Sports Center have done a good job of accommodating those user groups that make use of the gymnasium in some of the other rooms in the facility, like the multipurpose room on the second floor, for instance. But there are some users, pickleball is an example that, it's not easy to replicate in another part of the facility. So those groups, they've been displaced because of the vaccination clinic. It's an unfortunate situation. I guess the positive is that for a couple of months, we're going to be able to use the gym because the vaccine clinic won't be there. But when it comes back, and until such time as the demand for vaccine drops to the point where we don't need a specific vaccination center, then I think the health unit is of the opinion this is their best option to efficiently get it out there to the public. And I expect that, the Sports Center staff will work with all the groups like they always do to find alternative locations, whether it's in the Sports Center or somewhere else.
There we go. Mike Delay. I guess I should have premised my question with, I certainly recognize the fact that it's a balancing act, and I know that the city staff at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center do a tremendous job day in and day out with the high demand and the high service that they provide. I guess just on a go-forward basis, we know there are other facilities, churches, large churches that have gymnasiums, for example, where perhaps maybe either we as a city reach out to see if they're available, excuse me, to take on some leagues, let's say pickleball, for example, or basketball, or if the clinics have to be, or a smaller, reduced vaccination clinic, that these look at alternate sites as well. I know that the Sports and Wellness Center makes for a central location for the vaccination clinics, and it has served the community well, and want to make sure that that service continues. But it's also at some point we have to balance out some of the sports and athletics, particularly amongst our youth and children, and making sure that they have access. So thank you.
All right, anyone else on this? Our staff have done an amazing job trying to accommodate our user groups as best we can throughout COVID. From the very beginning, they've been dealing with people who have had a unrealistic expectation of what a pandemic is and what it impacts it. Right from the very beginning, back in March of 2020, where people felt that what we were doing was excessive, when we were mandated by provincial declaration of emergency to cease all those activities. And as we've gone through the reopening process, each time that we've been permitted, while most people have been very understanding and very cooperative, we continue to have people who are unreasonable in their expectations, including just as early as last week, where I had people complaining about the fact that we continue not to have our shower facilities open, and that they want to return back to a full normal situation. And and I think since the agenda went public, we've had people talking about how we shouldn't be helping to facilitate the vaccination of our residents, that there's lots of other places that they can go to, not understanding what is involved in a mass inoculation facility. The gymnasium that we're using now, to which we got lots of grief from basketball players and pickleball players and other people who use it, saying, we took away their opportunity to use it. The gymnasium that we moved the inoculation clinic to can do a maximum of 500 vaccinations a day. That compares to the Family Dental Center arena, which was set up to be 2,000 vaccinations a day. It was one of the first in Ontario to have this new arena style of operation, and people were amazed this summer when they went through it to see how efficient it was and how effective it was. It was a facility that had separate entrances and exits outside from the rest of the facility. It was an area that was truly self-contained, and it supported not just the people coming in to receive their vaccines, but also the staff and all the equipment. We did a great job. But now we're getting this pushback about why we want to do it. Well, if we consider the fact that we have about 55,000 people that are in the Belleville region, if we stayed in the gymnasium for this next stage, that would be 110 days before, at maximum capacity, we would get our residents vaccinated. Now, Mr. Beauvais, and I say this with all due respect to him because he is talking about this next cohort, which will be the 5 to 12-year-olds. But, you know, if COVID's taught us anything, we've got to look at the worst-case scenario. And the worst-case scenario in this case is going to be booster shots for our community. And last summer, in June and July and August, when the Family Dental Center was operating at really great numbers and very efficiently, we also had other facilities in the region that were providing vaccinations. They are not providing them at this point. And so the need on the Family Dental Center arena will be so much higher. And so while we talk about the fact that we will be looking at the 5 to 12-year-old cohort that is coming due hopefully next month, according to how things are going, you know, a lot of people got their vaccines in May and June and July, and 6 months is coming up in January. So I don't predict that the Family Dental Center will be back in operation for recreational ice use for any time soon. And that's why it's a good decision to take the ice out. We don't want to spend the money on the utilities that would have to keep that ice refrigerated so that we don't need it. But the sooner we get through this and the sooner we can get to a point where we are able to go back to our normal lifestyle, the better it's going to be. And I know that it is an inconvenience, and I know it is a sacrifice, and we have sacrificed and been inconvenienced from the very beginning on this. But we have a duty to do the right thing for our residents, and we're going to do it. I know that our staff will do everything they possibly can to ensure that recreational minor hockey is able to be accommodated with the 2 arenas that we're able to have, because the CA arena is restricted because of our agreement with the American Hockey League. So we'll still have those 2 arenas for recreational hockey. We'll cooperate, but I call upon people as well to understand that we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and we've got to be reasonable in our expectations. And so, you know, going back to normal, to be able to go to the game and shower in the locker room and hang out and not have to line up and provide proof of vaccination, all those things, we're not there yet. And if we continue to work hard, we will be. But this is the right decision for us moving forward. I am proud of the fact that the City of Belleville has a facility that is capable of accommodating this effort, and I know that there will be some in the community who will criticize us and talk about the fact that this is not fair, it's not right, it's not a good use, but this is the right thing to do for our community, and certainly I'll be supporting this. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Moving on to 8B4, a recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw 3014 as amended for 240 Bethel Road in the City of Belleville, and the applicant and owner is Todd Hogan. It is the Principal Planner's report number PP 2021-56. The resolution is that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council: that application B77-1145 to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended for 240 Bethel Road, City of Belleville, be approved as follows: that zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning a portion of the subject land from rural zone to rural X zone with special provisions to permit a cabin establishment as an accessory use and requiring a minimum 15-meter setback from rear and side lot lines, a 1.5-meter landscape buffer between the parking area and adjacent residential lot, a maximum size of 18.6 square meters per cabin, and limiting the number of cabins to 4 to facilitate a rural tourism development to be used for short-term accommodations. And 2, that bylaw amending zoning bylaw number 3014, being a bylaw to regulate the use of land and the height, bulk, location, size, floor area, spacing, character, and use of buildings, be prepared for Council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Councillor Millette, you raised this issue? Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, Councillor Millette, you raised the issue. Go ahead,
Yes,
sir.
I did. Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm going to support the recommendation from staff for this. But I did so with some reservation early on until I I watched this one closely because I worked with neighbors of this property, and I'm not faulting Mr. Hogan for taking the initiative to develop what staff have rightly termed an opportunity for rural tourism. However, the backstory on this was that he had built one cabin sort of off book, if you will. There wasn't any approvals. There were no permits taken out, and it was almost to the point of asking forgiveness rather than permission on that one. But he's now done it the correct way. All the applicable agencies have been referred to, and most concerning to me, you know, what should be, I think, to anybody who utilizes these properties is the fact that fire protection is limited. Fire vehicles will not be able to access this property now. If they're careful, these rental properties are built as off-grid. They will have wood-burning appliances in them. But fortunately, fire officials, and part of the approval is that they must have all the applicable smoke alarms and extinguishers. So I'm going to support it, but again, I'm happy to see that the regulatory process is working in this case. This is the way I think a rural tourism property needs to be developed with all full consultation. And I am only concerned that had there not been a complaint lodged by one of the neighbors, some of this property may have been developed sort of on the schneid, if you will. So I will be supporting it, but I did so earlier with reservation. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to 8B5, Ministry of the Environment 2021-22 Drinking Water System Inspection Report, number 1-198RZI, for the Point Anne Hamlet Drinking Water System. It is the General Manager of Environmental Services, report number GMES 2021-14, and the resolution is that the General Manager of Environmental Services, report number GMES 2021-14, regarding the Ministry of Environment 2021-22 Drinking Water System Inspection Report for the Point Anne Hamlet Drinking Water System be received as information. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Councillor Thompson, you had raised this item. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I just want to give thanks to Manager Perry DeCola on the score. If you look through his report, there was only one non-compliance, and it had really no effect on the overall scoring of the system, and we scored 100% in our inspection. And for an old system that's been down there for many, many years, to score 100%, I commend the staff, General Manager Perry DeCola and the staff for maintaining a water system down there and scoring 100% with only one non-compliance. And congratulations. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else on this? Good, and it's important that we read these reports in particular because we are personally liable as members of council when it comes to the health and safety of our drinking water system. So we are very lucky to have phenomenal staff working in that department, but it's also very rewarding to look at these reports and see them do so well. So thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll now move to 8B8, Healthcare Practitioner Recruitment. The Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives, report number ECDEV 2021-23. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Manager Economic and Strategic Initiatives, report number ECDEV 2021-23, Healthcare Practitioner Recruitment, the program expansion be referred to the 2022 operating budget for consideration. It's moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Councillor Sandison, you had raised this item first. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. It seems timely that President Dobb was here, and it's too bad she isn't here to hear this discussion. So we had raised this issue at the EDDC committee, and The first blush proposal in terms of the incentive for RNs, RPNs, and PSWs was basically generic. It was all the same. So we have modified it to sort of scale it so that we offer PSWs $3,000 towards their course of 5 for 1 year. RPNs and RNs, we've applied the same dollar amount in terms of 5,000. But if you look at the cost of those particular programs, the RN is double, not only in dollar value, but also in course length. I was interested to note President Dobbs' comment on the RN shortage. So it would be nice if we had sort of a needs analysis in front of us, but I think it's safe to go forward with the fact that we're short in every category. And to hear her talk about primary care, as I looked at the report and the doctor recruitment portion of it, where we've been very successful since its introduction. I think it was in 2007, and but we're sort of moving along with the same process. We're going to put $100,000 in the kitty for 2 doctors. We're suggesting $15,000 for 1 specialist. And so when I look at the numbers that are being proposed, if I've done the math correctly, we're going to be targeting 1 specialist and 5 each of the other categories, PSW, RPN, and RN, as well as the traditional, if you will, 2 doctors. So I certainly support the need to attract more primary care resources, but I would like us to do 2 things, or at least consider 2 things. One is to increase the incentive for the RNs from 5,000 to 10,000. And the second thing would be to increase our new family recruitment program from 2 doctors to 4 doctors. So if we crunch the numbers, what that would do is that would raise the investment in these resources to $730K per year versus the $525, I think, that is currently available through a lexicon, and then the additional $80,000 that's being proposed. So taking it from 605 to 730,000. So I don't know whether this is direction to staff to sort of evaluate it as they bring forward the 2022 budget, or whether it's something we should debate and decide here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson, I think what I would suggest is that, I know Ms. Post is here, and as well as Director Hines is here, and they are paying attention to the conversation. And, I think they can take it back and look at it. The challenge we're going to find ourselves in is that to say yes to these additional funds will mean that we're going to have to say no to others that have used those funds. And while Ms. Dobb was here talking about the need to help with people, she was also calling us to step up in terms of our capital contribution to the foundation to assist with their capital needs. And again, it's a balancing act, because I think if we were to increase in this area, we're going to see a decrease in the ability for us to help with capital. I'm not saying it's impossible. As you said, right now we are providing about $525,000 a year in our very successful physician recruitment program. There's a proposal now for an additional 80, take us to 605. You're suggesting to go to 730, so another 125,000 on top of that, which I think if we allowed Ms. Post and Director Hines to sort of look at that information will first come to the Finance Committee as we consider the operating budget, and then we'll come forward. I think the challenge right now is that for us to have a debate on that, we don't have all the information that we need, I think, to have available to us. And I don't think we have the information, not just about the money, but also about what we're going to have to say no to. The last thing I just want to say on this is that we have, I think, done a very good job in walking a fine line this term. We have stepped forward and we have funded with $1 million cash Hospice Quinte. That is a capital investment that we've made. That money became available because our funding commitments to foundations, both in Belleville but also with the Kingston Foundation, made those funds available. And I know that the Belleville General Hospital Foundation would have liked to have seen some funding, but we had made our decision to fund Hospice Quinte. Those types of items are the decisions we have to make. And you know, so that's my suggestion. Is I think it's good for discussion now. I see staff are nodding their heads that they've heard it, and then let's sort of see it come back and we can have a proper full discussion.
So the only thing I would add, Your Worship, is that so we also took the initiative in 2020 to increase long-term care support through Hastings County to Centennial and Hastings Manor. So in terms of providing support to the medical community, I think we're doing everything we can. But just again, relating back to President Dobbs' comment about, you know, if we invest in primary care, that sort of, you know, she will see the benefit of that in the 4 hospitals. And I don't know about the other councillors, but I'm hearing one of the constant issues that comes up is availability of doctors. And, you know, we know we've got a wave, or a continuing wave of, you know, doctors that are retiring. And we've got growth in the community. We've got new families moving in. So I just think that, and I appreciate the comments that they will take a look at it. I just think we need to, you know, sort of step up our game on the doctor recruitment. So thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor McCaw?
Thank you, through you. And I would tend to agree. Thanks very much for the report, Karen. I would tend to agree with Councillor Sandison. I mean, the reality is we can give an incentive of, you know, $5,000, but that's just going towards not even barely scratching the surface of what it's going to cost someone to go through the program. So to increase it to 1/3 of the actual cost, like the incentive, I think is great. I'd also like to see PSWs fully covered, as we know that the program was well subscribed to. I had a chance to speak with President Vaughan. I'd had some inquiries about the program because I knew several young ladies who were looking to leave high school and possibly subscribe to the free PSW program, and it was full. So I do definitely see that would be a huge help if we could actually cover the whole cost. I don't know if that's possible, but you know, this is a great start, and I think we need to really look at how we can increase definitely the RN, maybe the PSW, depending on, you know, how things go with finance, how we can actually finance it. I would really like to see that move forward with an increase on both of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCaw. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I fully in support of these recommendations, and I made note of a number of issues that were outlined, and I would, if I may, I've got 2 or 3 questions here, but if I may, through you, Your Worship, to Manager Post, perhaps a pilot project for 2022 would be the best way to proceed with the program, to be evaluated prior to 2023 January college intake for the scholarship and bursaries Can you just expand on that a little bit, please, if you would, Ms. Post?
Certainly, through Mayor Panchuk to Councillor Millette. So the recommendation is that we try it for 1 year. As Councillor McCaw mentioned, these programs are fully subscribed at Loyalist College. So in terms of thinking that the incentive would help graduate a lot more people, that's not really the effect that it would have. But the program could ensure that more of those graduates choose Belleville, because the second part of the incentive would happen when they accepted a job with a Belleville employer. So that was the reason for those statements.
And further to that, on the last page of Ms. Post's report, if additional funds cannot be provided by the Alexicon dividends, staff will work with the Finance Department to recommend a suitable fund to cover the additional expenses and make recommendations to Council. I guess through you to Ms. Post, and perhaps you're on the Alexicon board, Your Worship, what are the chances that Alexicon might be able to pony up a little more cash? Because certainly some around the table would like to put the arm on them for a little bit more on this pot.
Well, before Ms. Post answers in, Alexicon has been a very strong performer for us, and we have benefited. Matter of fact, just on the physician recruitment program, we've already invested $6.5 million of dividends that we've received from Alexicon to be able to recruit 40 physicians. And during that time, we've had physicians retire, and they've taken over practices, and they've helped. We're doing better than most, and part of it is because of that ability and revenue from Alexicon. In 2020 and 2021, Alexicon has been on target for what was forecast for their distributions. I'm looking for just confirmation from Director Hines, that what they've told us that they will give us, they've actually been able to do it in spite of the pandemic, and we expect that to go forward. It is a volatile industry as the province is going through deregulation and making changes to the traditional structures. So I think what would be safe is for us to continue to receive the annual distributions that we're getting, which is why if I go back to my comment I made to Councillor Sandison, this is about saying yes in addition to some other areas, which means we're also going to see a corresponding drop somewhere else because there is a finite amount of money that's there. Now, what I will say is that, through our process on the board with the Alexicon, and there will be a presentation made at some point. We tried to get them to come to give Council an update. But, the predictable funding is key because they know that municipalities such as Belleville rely on those funds to use for distributions. But we do have some other sources that I know Manager Post and Ms. Hines will go through, specifically some of our revenue sharing with the casino. Although they have been impacted by COVID-19 as well, they are forecasting to come through it, and so we have some potential revenue there. And then, I think the prudent thing for us to do is to let them take this information back. They'll work on it. They'll come up to a proposal. We're expecting that operating budget will be in April this year. We're going to do capital on December the 6th, I believe, and then operating budget in April. By that time, we may have some additional streams that we can look at. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And just one quick question through you to Ms. Post. Great ideas, and I fully support whatever we can to maintain and even increase. But I'm just wondering, did these discussions of proposed increases in these amounts come up for discussion at EDDC or no?
The new ones today, no, but the original ones that precipitated this report came from a letter that I wrote to the EDDC asking them to look at expansion of our very successful physician recruitment program. Whether we should continue with it, modify it, or also look at non-physician positions in our region.
Okay, no, I was just wondering where those numbers came from. And okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. And with the motion to refer this to the operating budget, you know, to have the suggestion for increases, I think the option should be presented to council with some analysis so we can make decisions then. The couple questions I have is, you know, we have been very, well, we've been involved in healthcare, I guess, by default, and we continue to do so. And it is somewhat frustrating when you think about it because at the end of the day, there's only so many resources out there in terms of doctor, physician spots within post-secondary schools and only so many positions available. And so with that in case, we're always going to come up short as a province. And, you know, it really comes down to provincial funding. And I don't know what it would be if everybody had a doctor because OHIP wouldn't be able to handle with the current budget. And so there's got to be more money from the provincial level and probably through transfer payments from the federal government to really have an influx of cash in order to fund more physician positions, because at the end of the day, we're competing again with a very scarce resource. And I think we're doing well, but we shouldn't have to be contorting ourselves to try to compete when the need is there across Ontario. But yet here we are, and this is what we got to try to do. The things that I would be looking for, and I would ask staff to perhaps maybe consult, not just with Quinte Healthcare, but we do have other major employers that employ RNs, RPNs, and PSWs. To get an idea, and I know President Dobb referred to the fact of attract, train, and retain. And she really emphasized retain, and I don't think today was the day to get into the specifics, but that analysis would be key. Everybody's attracting physicians or nurses. Quebec now is offering up to $18,000 as a province to attract 4,000 nurses at approximately a $1 billion cost. So there you have a province trying to attract, and here we are as a municipality trying to attract non-primary care or RNs, RPNs, and PSWs. And so I would be interested to know, particularly QHC as being a very large employer for our city, but also long-term care, as well as both public and private, to get an idea on their attraction rates, their ability to train, but most importantly, the retention. And I think that's a key area that we need to focus on. And I know that Quinte Healthcare has some existing employment incentives that they receive money through the federal government, and it's there at the $10,000 mark. But I'm wondering if, and perhaps we can debate this further at budget time when we have this information, but I'd be interested to know the retention rates, and perhaps maybe a cash incentive would be attached to that. It's easy to get maybe somebody here, you know, you get your quick incentive, it helps maybe pay down some costs, you start to get your foot into the healthcare world, and then suddenly maybe you want to go somewhere else. Whereas if there's some financial incentive to retain. So I'd like at least to know what we have for vacancies, our attraction rates currently, as well as any retention and attrition rates. So if that information can be included come budget time, that would be great. As well as I look forward to seeing the analysis on the suggestion that Councillor Sanderson put forward. The last question I have is with respect to the nurse practitioner clinic. And this is the first time that it's come to council in an official form. And there's reference here that council will continue to pursue this investment. And I'd like to know what council is doing to pursue this investment.
Well, I'm not sure what Ms. Post meant in it, but council hasn't done anything on this yet. There is a proposal that the ministry is considering that was submitted by the Belleville Nurse Practitioner Clinic, and if it was considered positively, then we will see about next steps. But right now, the city of Belleville has not done anything. And as you asked about this, I think at the last council meeting, any authorization, any funding, any commitments would have to come before council to be approved.
Yes, thank you.
Just one moment, please. So Councillor Carr, I was just asking for some clarification here, because from my understanding of what you were talking about in terms of the information you'd like available for the operating budget, you're looking at getting information about whether or not we should be funding existing employees at Quinte Healthcare to have them stay versus what the proposal is right now, which is to assist people who are going to school in exchange for receiving some assistance with their education, that they would agree to stay here for a period of time, which is the same model that we use for our physician recruitment program. And you know, I think what we have to do is amend this to specifically include that, because that's a big departure from what Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Millette were talking about, which is, again, working with Loyalist College, working with, you know, providers of education, you know, to find people who are going to school and say, hey, when you're finished school, stay here for a period of time. Physicians, it's 5 years, versus the people who are already working for them, that there may be a cash incentive to stay here. You know, I know you referenced the province of Quebec, and that's what they're doing to keep nurses there. But you know, it's you know, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that, because as we know, healthcare is a provincial responsibility. We step in because we recognize there's a need, but you know, where does it end when we start paying existing employees to stay and not to go away? And so if you can just clarify that so we can understand.
Sorry about that. Let me clarify that. Let me sharpen this up a little bit. So, for example, in our end, it's hired at Quinte Healthcare. That incentive starts upon hire, and it's in increments over the course of 12 months. So when I was looking at the city's proposed incentive, I was looking at within the time frame of the 12 months. So I'm not talking about somebody who's been with Quinte Healthcare for 20 years and decides to go somewhere else.
Okay, I understand.
What I'm looking at is retention based on new hires, and believe it or not, there is somewhat of an issue there in terms of retaining new hires beyond those 12 months. So what I was looking for was something to do with relative new hires that have got the incentive over 12 months. Is there any retention issues after that 12 months or within the first 3 to 5 years that we could tack on as part of get you hired, get you here, get you to stay? And it's no different than with our doctor recruitment. We do it over the 5 years with a 5-year commitment and stay. The current incentive through Quinte Healthcare is 12 months, which is not very long. And as Dr. Dobb pointed out, there was retention issues, and she referred to the fact that there was a couple of hires that couldn't proceed because of, I think, housing and childcare, so they haven't even landed here. So I was looking at the retention issues in relation to new hires.
Okay,
not,
so that, I understand now, and I think that's consistent with our policy. So we'll ask for that information if they're able to provide it for us as part of it. And I think the idea here is that the supplemental incentive that's added to it will be a critical enough size that it would mean that they're retained. You know, the issue about retention is a good one, even with our current physician program, because while we've had 40 physicians that we have attracted, at the end of the 5 years, not everyone has chosen to stay. Some have moved on, and also some who went into the program weren't able to complete the program, and they refunded the funds back to us and whatnot. So I understand now better. Thank you. Anyone else on this? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just some thoughts on the conversation. I think anytime you have a conversation around healthcare is a good conversation to have. If we go to manager post conclusion, just for people watching and around the table here, Karen Post puts, the need for additional healthcare resources is likely to increase as our population grows and ages. And we're talking about bringing in medical support and giving them initiative or working with them. And that statement is so true. I'm on the long-term care committee along with Councillor Sanderson, and it's been an education what goes on in long-term care over the last 3 years for, I think I speak for Mr. Sanderson on that. Hastings County has Hastings Manor and Centennial Manor in Bancroft that we are responsible for. And over the last 2 years, we've heard of the shortage issues for providers, healthcare providers, both in Belleville and in Bancroft, particularly with PSWs. They couldn't get them. And RNs, they were paying them huge dollars to come in from Peterborough and do a shift. So should we be looking at ways to partner with educational institutions, and if we're talking Loyalist, I think that's a good conversation to have. Loyalist has a program right now, it's 21 weeks. It's a compressed PSW course. On average, they take about 120 students. And PSWs, part of the challenge for that career or profession is it was wages. Hardest working employees, normally in a manner, lowest at the pay grid. But now they're around $25 per hour. So that's been a big jump from when they were, I think, just over minimum wage 3 years ago. And we had Minister Smith in Belleville last week with an announcement on long-term care. And I know I'm referring to that, and there's been conversations about hospitals too. But Minister Smith and the Ontario government announced that there's going to be more hires, RNs, RPNs, PSWs, in the next 3 years. They're putting billions of dollars in healthcare, and particularly long-term care was the announcement. And huge amount of jobs, I think 27 PSWs just for Hastings Manor alone in the next 2 or 3 years. So it's already happening. The part about the incentives, it gives the student, he or she, something to consider that once upon graduation or before they start, as long as they make that commitment to Belleville. But the number one thing for me is still doctor recruitment. As we heard the CEO, president of the hospital tonight, Stacey Dobbs, say that that's critical. That's in a tough situation. So doctor recruitment is still number one, and to work with the RNs, RPNs, and PSWs, and if we can give them a bonus, if you will, for staying local, that's something I can see that can work. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. One question. On page 20, Manager Karen, staff would recommend a maximum of 2 specialists per year on an ongoing basis until the need has been satisfied. The total commitment per year for this recommendation is $30,000 per year for 5 years. Total $75,000 over 5 years. So is that the same amount, and I'm trying to decipher that we're offering for regular doctors, if you want to call them regular doctors, is that the same as we're offering them, or is this a different ratio?
Through Mayor Panchuk to Councillor Thompson, no, we're proposing that we fund specialists at a rate of 50% of what we provide to family physicians. So we normally, they're entitled to $150,000 paid over 6 years. For specialists, we're recommending $75,000 paid over 5 years.
Is that what we've been doing before, or is this something new?
We have done this in the past, yes.
But were they subsidized at $75,000, or were they subsidized at the $150,000?
I believe we have done one specialist at the full amount, and I think a couple at the reduced amount.
That's the only thing that I would like to look at in budget time, is the rate of bringing in specialists and offering them less amount. We know that every hospital can't function, and we can't, our hospitals can't go the advancement in the level that we talk about Kingston and Toronto without specialists. So come back, and I like the report. I met with Manager Post before I came here, and I like the 2-year trial period for the other, but I'm concerned about specialists not being offered the same as a doctor, because they are as important, if not, in one field. Without them, our hospital can't grow and mature at the rate it is. So I would like to look at budget time, whether that's the time, Mr. Mayor, where we look at that figure, or whether it's now. So I'm looking for, where would that discussion come up?
Well, I think let's leave it for budget time. Let's give Manager Post and
Okay.
work with other departments to get all this information that
Yep.
we've
Okay.
asked to go through it. again, this is
I know.
a complicated issue.
Yep.
And, you know, we've talked about this. We need more of everything.
Yes, we do.
But, you know, we also have to pay for it.
Yep.
And if we're going to give more of these, you know, lexicon dividends,
Yeah.
that means that when when the Belleville General Hospital Foundation comes to us because they need a new CAT scan machine or they need equipment because they don't get any funding for equipment, we're not going to have the funds to be able to honor that as well. So,
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. What I'm concerned with is that are we putting less value on specialists than a family doctor? And I'm not sure we want to do that. So that's my concern there. I know.
But, you know, again, this is, you know, there are a whole bunch of issues from, you know, whether we want to be seen as poaching other communities' health practitioners to, you know, our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is built on physicians. If you don't have physicians, you don't have a healthcare system. Now, there are many other contributors to it, as you pointed out, including specialists. But fundamentally, we need all of those pieces to work. And as our community grows, we're going to see more of a need. The one thing I think that's lost through all of our discussion is that we have to talk about how remarkable we are as a city to have had this very successful physician recruitment program. And while we have many residents who do not have a primary physician, a primary care physician, Ms. Daub talked about 20 out of 100 babies are born at the Belleville General Hospital that don't have access to a primary family physician. We are doing so much better than many communities. And so I think, you know, we'll be able to have that conversation, but I don't think we're going to be able to make everybody happy. No. And I don't think that we're going to be able to, you know, make everybody feel that they're the most important part of our healthcare system because we just don't have the money for all that.
No, and I agree 100%. Where we cut it off and where we don't. And I agree, our hospital facilities are top-notch. I defy as many people has been through as many operations as this guy over the years. I think it's 7 now. And our hospitals are top-notch, whether they're Belleville or Kingston. So,
good. All right, anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to take all this information we had. It'll be considered, and it'll come back to us at the operating budget or earlier if the information's available, and I think this would be worthy of a pre-budget discussion, potentially, but I'm getting the frown from Director Hines. But we'll try to do it. You know, this is such an important issue. I also don't want to see it get buried into our annual operating budget, so let's see how it all goes, but I appreciate everyone's comments today on this. You know, we are a very, very good community because the City of Belleville is investing in a wide variety of healthcare funding needs, and this is more good news. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move to 8B10, Licensing and Regulation of Short-Term Accommodations. It is the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2021-28. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2021-28, Licensing and Regulation of Short-Term Accommodations, staff engage professional services to identify all Belleville short-term accommodations, and that the city begin the process of collecting the municipal accommodation tax from those identified short-term accommodators, and that staff prepare a report for council's consideration at a future meeting on the recommended method of implementing the regulation and licensing of all short-term accommodators in the City of Belleville. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Councillor Thompson, you had first identified this. Go ahead, sir.
yeah, and I'll be short and sweet. This one here is is something that's been needed. It isn't any community across Ontario or Canada that doesn't need to bring the number of short-term stays together under one roof so we can regulate it. And if we're collecting from one, we should be collecting them from them all. But I will say that I certainly agree with staff that we go outside and hire somebody, a company, to bring the number of units together for our staff then to proceed later on with how they're going to implement it. But unless we hire somebody, the workload for our staff just isn't there, and I think we need to go outside, but I commend them for bringing this forward and look forward to a full disclosure of anybody that's short-term, and hopefully that we can get that in a short period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm going to support this as well. It's important that we get a read on these STAs. As anybody who's been following the debacle in the county knows, they think they have X number, and only to find out that there are hundreds more that fly under the radar. And again, we're going to engage a firm to use software that will quote-unquote scrape various sites for information on them. I just want to see these STAs pay their fair way in our community. I understand they bring tourists to the community, visitors to the community, and they benefit in some manner, the owners of the property, but let's face it, in the middle of a housing crisis, the last thing you need is burgeoning STAs, but we do first things first, get them identified, get them at least a number on them, and then go after them to pay their freight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? Okay, so I have some comments and some questions myself. So, you know, when we discussed this, I'm not sure if it was the last meeting or the meeting before that, and we asked for a report to come back. I expected a report to come from Mr. McDonald as the city clerk and the director of corporate services, because it would deal with a roadmap about how we would set in place our regulations and our licensing process. And you know, instead we have you know, almost an inverted pyramid here. What I mean by that is I think that the recommendations should be reversed, and so the third recommendation should be the first one, and then the middle one be the second one, and then the third be hiring those professional services. And the reason for that is because we need to have the ability to require people to license their short-term accommodation facilities. And that's more than just about collecting the municipal accommodation tax. We need to let residents and we need to let city staff know where exactly are properties that are being used for short-term accommodations. When we have that requirement that people identify their properties as short-term accommodations, just like we have a requirement for people to identify their properties for business purposes or for anything else along those lines, the municipality has the ability to have a number of planning requirements, such as rezoning, and to require a certain zoning to allow for short-term accommodators. It allows you to be able to offer grandfathering, so that these types of businesses, because this is what we're talking about is a business, these types of businesses would register by such and such a time, and there would therefore be grandfathered. You know, last term, Councillor Carr brought forth a proposal or a recommendation that we restrict or we regulate the number of payday loaning establishments by geographic area in the city. And there may be a time where we want to look at short-term accommodators to be so many per neighborhood, for example, because it is changing our neighborhoods, and our residents are telling us that, you know, a property used to be for a single family who were residents. They were either renting or they owned the property, and now suddenly you are having high turnover and transients, and they're less respectful of the neighborhood. They're less respectful of the neighbors. We're seeing increased noise complaints and littering and all those other issues. You know, to even be able to consider that, you have to have some type of a regulation. And so I'm surprised that, you know, that's not the first recommendation, is to have a draft bylaw which would require individuals who are operating these businesses in the city to be licensed and then regulated. You know, I think after that, then we can start working on are people have they stepped forward? Are they being are they applying to be licensed? And then we can deal with the municipal accommodation tax and things elsewhere. There are a number of rules that the city has that are in place that we don't actively go out and police. that we are able to respond on a complaint basis. A number of our bylaws are that way. And I think that's the first step that I would like to see us do it. So, you know, Mr. McDonald, I wonder if I can ask you, what would be involved in bringing forth a bylaw that would require the short-term accommodators to be licensed so that we are aware of them and that we would be in a position to be able to regulate them?
To the mayor, I think we could put a bylaw in place, licensing regulation bylaw in short order. What effect it might have for voluntary compliance, I'm unsure. The report is a result of a multi-department meeting. So we met with staff in engineering and development services, including folks in bylaw enforcement and building, fire, economic development, strategic initiatives. The challenge we have is when we ask those departments, could they assist in the enforcement regulation side? Bylaw enforcement's answer is they don't have the capacity. So certainly we could put a bylaw in place knowing full well that compliance is voluntary and enforcement is not going to happen. The challenge we have is we didn't, I think at the meeting the recognition was we didn't have an idea of the scope. So certainly we could do that. You know, my experience is putting something in place of that nature and then getting future compliance is more difficult than identifying the issue and then in a measured manner putting the bylaw in place with licensing and regulation requirements where we know what the scope is. So I think that's why it's in the order that it is. Certainly understand where you're coming from. I think we're looking at other municipalities. Some do it specifically through zoning bylaw and official plan amendments. The challenge we have there is that's years out here because we're very close to Director Ashton's group putting an official plan amendment, new zoning bylaw in front of council. Other municipalities have gone down this road, have done it almost uncountable ways with varying degrees of success. None in my opinion, really successful. I think Prince Edward County, our closest neighbor, is struggling with their approach, and their approach was very much that. They looked at it, very quickly identified they had a problem. I don't think anybody was unaware of that. They put a licensing and regulation bylaw in place, and now they're trying to catch up. And I think we're trying to do it in a different manner, so as we're not doing that. But certainly, yeah, the development of a bylaw, we have lots of examples, including Prince Edward counties, that we could use it as a model, put it in place, and then look for voluntary compliance on the front end while we try to identify, subsequent to that, the number of short-term accommodators in the city.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I guess what I'm trying to understand here from a logic point of view is that currently in the city of Belleville, there is no requirement to identify a property as a short-term accommodator. But we do have a municipal accommodation tax which says they must remit funds to the city because they are a short-term accommodator. And so you can see it's almost like this chicken and egg scenario, and how do you know who's supposed to be submitting a municipal accommodation tax when you don't have a requirement for them to be licensed? If you don't have a requirement for them to be licensed, how do you expect them to think that they have to remit? And this is not just an issue about the municipal accommodation tax, which is an important one, and certainly this is also about the fact that we are in the midst of a housing crisis, and properties that used to be available for residents to live in and their families, whether they be for rent or for ownership, are now coming off the market. We have out-of-town investors that are bidding up the price of these homes, and I know for some it's very, very good. But when you hear from Ms. Daub today, and how many times have we heard stories of employers looking for employees? They finally find someone who's willing to fill a vacancy, and when they come here, they can't find anywhere for them to stay and they have to decline the job. We don't do ourselves any favors by doing it, and I just think it's a very onerous process for us to start off. For the first step is to hire an outside company to come in to scrub the websites, to find out who are the the Airbnbs and the other short-term accommodators, so that we can then go after them and try to say, you owe funds under the municipal accommodation tax, and then still not have a regulation or a requirement for them to license. So, I know Councillor Thompson, you moved this, and I think Councillor Millette, you seconded it. If you are in agreement, I think that I'd like to see Mr. McDonald bring back a report on what a licensing regulation would look like, and that is the first step for us to go about. Now, I recognize this is going to be an added burden on the bylaw enforcement department, and we already know that in a growing community, we already have strains on there, and so we're going to have to deal with that regardless of whether or not we deal with short-term accommodators. But, we never imagined that we would be asking our bylaw enforcement officers to go out and enforce COVID protocols and the requirements in the province, and they've done that. And so I think, this is in my opinion, that's the best way for us to go about it, is to bring in the bylaw that requires people to be licensed with an annual fee, which comes with many of our other businesses, and then at that point we can look at hiring outside agencies to deal with the municipal accommodation tax and whatnot. So, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Millette, are you okay with just doing item number, the third of those 3 bullets as the first step, and have Mr. McDonald bring back a report? Or the other option for us would be to defeat this motion and bring in a separate one?
Yeah, I just, one question towards that then. In the third step, is that the staff prepare a report of council consideration at a future meeting, the recommending method of implementing the regulations and licensing? So you want that as step 1 along with the other?
No, I think that's the only step that we're looking at right now. And then in the future, we can take a look at items 2 and items 3, because they'll flow from it. But, again, we have lots of examples of bylaws that we have in place that require property owners to do certain things, but we don't act on them unless we receive complaints. What would happen is, once we have a licensing bylaw in place, then I'm sure the bylaw department will start getting some complaints about people who are operating an illegal short-term accommodation facility. Then they can start looking into it. By that time, we'll work with Director Hines' department, who are responsible for the collection of the municipal accommodation tax, on what we're going to consider doing there. But again, I think the municipal accommodation tax is a secondary issue to the whole item about having short-term accommodators in our communities.
Okay, I just consulted with my fellow councillor Millette, and he's consulted with Manager Karen Post, I understand, and I will allow the change.
So what we'll do is we'll just strike the first 2 recommendations, and we're just going to go with recommendation number 3. And then we'll bring those back in the future. It doesn't mean, but that's the first order of business that will happen. And, Director McDonald will bring us an actual bylaw that we will be able to consider and then implement, and then.
Yeah, and that's when I spoke about moving, but you want to, how do we make sure that we stay, though, the other 2 items?
Again, we'll have to deal with that in the future, Councillor Thompson. I'm not prepared to agree to hire an outside company and to have them come in and start scrubbing websites and doing all this work when we don't even have a regulation in place. The first step is the regulation. And then once we have the regulation, we'll see what the amount of activity the bylaw enforcement department is seeing. Let's imagine for a moment that a resident complains about a property in their neighborhood that is a short-term accommodator and has not been licensed. Once they go out and they lay a charge that they have to comply, and they do so, it becomes much easier for Director Hines' department to collect the municipal accommodation tax. And then we can look down the road at doing these programs. Let's remember too, Airbnb was telling us all the right things, They were willing to cooperate, they were willing to facilitate, they were going to voluntarily collect the municipal accommodation tax on behalf of municipalities until they changed their mind, and now they say they want a province-wide regulation. Well, who knows how long that's going to take. In the meantime, we have a housing crisis that's increasingly getting worsened, and we have no ability to even know how big that problem is. So I just think that's the first step, and we all know that it's not going to go away. We're not going to forget about it. But I think this is the first step, and it's premature to start talking about engaging outside companies to do this work when we don't even have a regulation.
Yeah, and Manager Karen Post, also in the conclusion, it is also noted, recommended that staff work with multiple city departments to bring back process forward with details regulating and licensing the recommendations to STA in Belleville. So it's covered there, so I'm okay with it.
Okay. So the motion is amended, that the recommendation just be the third bullet, so the first to be deleted. It's been moved and seconded. They've agreed to it, so it's on the floor. Anyone else want to talk about that? Councillor Carr and then Councillor McCaw?
Yeah, thank you. And I see under the original report, obviously it went through the approvals of various departments and the CEO. One question through you to the Director of Corporate Services. What kind of time frame would we be looking at before a draft regulation would come our way?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, it would either be the next meeting or the first meeting, the only meeting in November.
Okay. And that's great, because then that gets us moving to the other issues and actually gets them identified and registered and what have you. The other question that I have, it pertains to zoning. And should we be looking at zoning options? And maybe I'll look to the Director of Development and Engineering Services, so that these aren't just saturated throughout the city. I know that we've just approved a short-term accommodation in a rural area that required a zoning amendment. So I'm just wondering whether we should be looking at some zones in particular.
But the zoning amendment didn't require it to be a short-term accommodator, right? It required it for the type of structures, if I think correctly? Yeah. So,
yeah.
Director Ashton.
So we're finalizing our new official plan. So typically an official plan has to have provisions sort of enabling this if we want to regulate through the zoning bylaw. We chose not to do that because it had a specific terms of reference for the official plan update. So in terms of regulating through zoning, et cetera, we would do that at a later date, but this is going to require a lot of consultation, because I know we were talking about the accommodation tax. We're also talking about addressing housing. So that is going to require a lot of consultation. And right now, as you're aware, we're kicking off a Bell Boulevard corridor study. We're kicking off the Loyalist secondary plan update. So we have a lot of projects on the go. So it's going to be at least 2 to 3 years sort of thing before we get a lot of these projects underway. So in that time frame, if we wanted to deal with it through licensing, and then at that point in time see what the priorities are once we get a handle of how many, there might only be 100 short-term rentals, so it might not be something we want to regulate, but there might be 5,000 short-term rentals, and we do have to address it. So anyways, it's definitely something that kind of we have a full workload right now, and
So with that workload, then if we can't do it through zoning, because you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So if we don't attempt to try to regulate how many we have in our community, theoretically, as this hums along, and we could be registering properties all over the city at quite a rate that we would never get a handle on, and suddenly our housing stock that's required for people to come and work here and live and what have you is getting bought up. So is there a short-term measure we can take?
Well, the issue about requiring a property to be zoned to allow for a short-term accommodator can be done down the road if we license them first. But, Councillor Carr, it was your idea to bring in geographic restrictions for payday loan establishments. What was did we require a special zone? Well, I know those are special zoning under provincial regulations, I believe. But how did we go about having the geographic restriction so that there weren't all, for example, on a 2-block radius?
So there was 3 zones, and they were in the commercial area, and they were limited to 1 per zone, knowing that there's many others grandfathered in. But for example, up on North Front Street, there's actually one that's closed up. It's now a marijuana dispensary, but that, under that bylaw, or however that was passed, we can't have another payday loan there. So it was one per zone, and there was 3 zones identified.
Quadrant? Because I think we set the city up into quadrants, but
Yes.
was it a zoning restriction, or was it a geographic one? So Mr. McDonald might
Yeah.
remember.
The restriction on the payday loan industry was done simply by not issuing additional licenses per zone. So the currently established payday loan lenders, which is federally regulated, were grandfathered, and the establishment of 1 per zone was permitted with no further licenses permitted per zone once another establishment. Quadrant,
Yeah.
whatever it was deemed, but it was simply through licensing, so.
Because I think, again, as we go down the road, if we find that we have certain neighborhoods that are oversaturated with short-term accommodators and residents are having issues with it, that may be a similar method to deal with it. But we also could, down the road, in a few years, as Director Ashton said, have a requirement that a property must be zoned a certain way to allow for short-term accommodators, like we have properties now that are required to be zoned a certain way for a hotel or a commercial establishment or a type of business.
So if I could, then what about licensing short-term accommodation? Like any other business? Do we have that ability?
That's what we're asking about.
Right.
So that's
So
what
do
this-
that now and worry about the zoning later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we might, and I guess the word we may not even be using correctly is zoning. We may just restrict the number of licenses issued in certain areas. And I don't want to scare anybody because we don't know what the geographic area may be. But that would be a way to go about it while we wait for time to catch up on the zoning side.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I was just looking for a measure that we could get on it now before we, and I appreciate the workload that Engineering Development Services is doing, but we need to make sure that we're putting a cap on these at least before they get out of hand. Thank you.
This is a big step for us, and this is the first big step as we go down this road, so that's good. Anyone else on this? All right, so the resolution is that staff prepare a report for council's consideration at a future meeting on the recommended method of implementing the regulation and licensing of all short-term accommodators in the city of Belleville. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll move now to 8C, council information matters, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. We'll go the other way around the table. Councillor Kelly?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette?
No, thank you.
Councillor Feeney? No, thank you. Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Oh, thanks.
Councillor Sandison?
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw?
No, thank you.
All right, so the motion is that that all agenda items be received. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. A motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Bylaws, we have a few. So first reading of bylaws number 2021-170, 171, and 172. Moved by Councillor Sandison, second by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaws number 2021-170, 171, and 172. Moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Sandison. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaws number 2021-170, 171, and 172. Moved by Councillor Feeney and Councillor Sandison. All in favor? It's carried. Next item is new business. I sincerely hope everyone had a great long weekend and were able to spend some quality time with family and friends for Thanksgiving. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank our residents and our business owners for adhering to the regulations that continue to be in place during the Government of Ontario's reopening plan. I know that the policies in place continue to impact our daily lives, and I appreciate everyone's contribution as we as a country, as we as a province, and we as a community work to find a balance between carrying on with life while also keeping all residents safe. City Hall continues to be open to the public from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. However, online, phone, and Dropbox services continue to be offered as an alternative to coming into City Hall, and the public is encouraged to continue utilizing these options whenever possible. As of September 22nd, the City introduced an identification and proof of COVID-19 vaccination policy for entrance to municipal buildings. Individuals 12 years of age and older wishing to enter City buildings are required to provide personal identification and proof of COVID-19 vaccination each time they seek entry into a city building. Those wishing to meet with engineering, planning, and building officials on the second floor are still advised to book an appointment, and anyone looking for marriage licenses and Commissioner of Oath services are encouraged to call the city clerk's office to confirm that you have all the required documentation before you come in for that service. The Belleville Public Library continues to be open to the public, and starting today, the library has now extended their hours, opening earlier and staying open later. Exact hours are available at bellevillelibrary.ca. Also, under the current Ontario government regulation, the CA Arena, Templeman Aquatic Centre, the 50 Plus Centre, and the Family Dental Centre indoor walking track are now open. The workout studios will begin to reopen this month with safety restrictions. Please stay tuned to the walking track modifications now that we are going to be moving the vaccination clinic back to the Family Dental Centre. We also received news that the CA Arena is permitted 100% capacity for games for the Belleville Senators. Please note that pre-registration is required in most cases, and that all persons entering the Quinte Sports and Wellness Centre are required to show proof of vaccination, with some exceptions. We encourage the public to check the Quinte Sports and Wellness Centre website for all of the most up-to-date details. Lastly, the provincial vaccine booking system remains open, and the vaccination centre located at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Centre continues to operate under the management of the Prince Edward Hastings Public Health Unit and our Quinte Sports and Wellness Centre team. Thank you to everyone involved with creating a safe and accessible space for our residents to receive our COVID-19 vaccinations. As a council, we remain collectively and singularly focused on your safety and your health in all of our decisions. We thank everyone for their cooperation and support of our efforts, and encourage everyone to get vaccinated as soon as they are able to do so. Anyone else have any items for new business today? Councillor Millette.
Danke, Herr Bürgermeister. While you were away, I had a meeting indeed with Clerk MacDonald. We've got some ideas about my concerns from the last meeting. We will be working through the clerk's office, your office, and the Cultural Exchange Committee to do some tuning on that. So that's taken care of. And I've got a couple of announcements, but they'll come.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else for new business? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. I noticed on Sydney Street north between Millennium and Vermilion, which is a boundary road, it appears Quinte West is doing some marking for some pre-drilling. So I'm hopeful that perhaps they may be considering resurfacing that road. So just ask that our portion be included in the draft capital budget for consideration. And then also I'm asking for a preliminary design issue for a sidewalk extension in Foxborough from Doucette Road to the public school be added to the draft budget for council's consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. MacDonald has noted those two items. All right, anyone else for new business? All right, there are no motions today. Any notice of motions? Seeing none, we'll move to announcements. Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make today? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the first one is you'll be making a proclamation shortly, I expect, I hope. Staff and your office have worked on this. I just wanted to say a little bit as Chair of the Green Task Force. Beginning next Monday is Waste Reduction Week, and we'll be celebrating it here. and across Canada, October 18th to the 24th. Waste Reduction Week takes place yearly in Canada and focuses on principles of a circular economy, resource efficiency, and waste reduction. And this year, the Green Task Force will communicate through our social media platforms to help educate residents, because, again, with ongoing COVID, you just never know. We would plan an event and only to have it shut down. So the Green Task Force will focus on different themes of Waste Reduction Week. Again, the circular economy will be explained, and it's a manner of reducing our household and business waste, textiles, e-waste, plastics. So I encourage everyone to look to our social media channels for the City of Belleville. Our communications department has been busy working with our environmental services department and putting together an informative program. So through the week, you'll be seeing various notices on Waste Reduction Week. And as I mentioned, His Worship will be making a declaration shortly on that front, that next week is in fact that week. And secondly, and this is a little bit more of a whimsical kind of an announcement, we all know that social media, the aforementioned social media, can be a hellish place at times, but in the past week, I was really pleased to see a cheerful discussion and a happy discussion on one of the neighborhood group discussion pages on Belleville Neighbors, I believe it was, on Facebook. And they were praising our city staff for the efforts in greening up our floral displays throughout the city. And I'd mentioned that, you know what, there's a good idea to maybe get a little bit of recommendation. I got it wrong, and I was quickly corrected that it wasn't, in fact, whom I had originally thought came up with the ideas. I would like to mention Mary Ann Ascott, who is our one of our city gardeners. So the bumblebee, the flower walls, the truck, all of these ideas from our talented city gardener, Mary Ann, who messaged me to make sure that she said, my ideas and Chris Bridge, our mechanic at Parks and I worked together on the designs, and he did the fabrication of the mosaic culture insects in the living wall frame, which we see across City Hall. And of course, with the support of Roland Cave, Brown Cave, Joe Reed, and Scott Whiteman, you know, it was just a great collaborative effort. So some of the comments were just great stuff, and you don't often hear it praising the city because we're forever being knocked for one thing or another. But some of the comments, park staff did an amazing job this year. I especially love the plant wall downtown and all of the edible food, plants being grown amongst the flowers. A lot of people forget there are edible portions of those gardens. I absolutely love the ones on Dundas at the Bay Bridge and Sydney intersections. You guys do some amazing work. And there was one comment, there's talent there for sure. You made Belleville beautiful this year, amazing gardens and hanging baskets, which is something we do every year. And great job done and much appreciated. Love the canna lilies downtown. So, you know, a little bit of praise for our staff. And we have some amazing creative people in our ranks, and just the tip of the hat to those people.
You know, that's an excellent point, Councillor Milena. If I can just add on this topic regarding the greening of the city. You know, one of the good things that came out of COVID was, you know, when I started doing my weekly, or at the very beginning, my daily updates for residents about the city's actions on COVID, and then we moved to weekly. They were getting boring in the same spot, so we tried to travel around the city looking for that. And last year in the springtime, I met Marianne and all of her colleagues at the greenhouse, the city greenhouse, and to see what they do. And you know, there's a saying about how when you get out of the way and let people with passion and ingenuity do their work, you can see the result of it. It is a little scary to think that we came so close last term to seeing our greenhouse program turned down, and that we would be buying flowers from the Lowe's and the Home Depots of the world rather than growing our own, which you can see this year that when we gave them that ability, the creativity that they've done. And I can assure you and everybody that I'm promised that 2022 will be even better than this year, and I know that that it's been a lot. And with everything that we've gone through COVID, the joy that so many residents have found through the wonderful flowers and outdoor living arrangements, everything from the pollinator spaces that we've been doing and the trees that we've been planting. You know, you're right to get up and to honor those employees. They're the unsung heroes that are behind the scenes, and people have commented about how beautiful our city is. Anyone else for announcements? Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just a quick note to thank all the city staff, and I wanted to mention a special mention to Sheila Alexander and all the residents of the city of Belleville that came out on September the 30th for Belleville's Truth and Reconciliation Day. And thanks to our Indigenous friends who participated in our program. I took a lot from that committee, and I feel that we strengthened our relationships with our Indigenous peoples, and it was a great day overall. But just thanks very much to the support from City and all the staff here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to say on September 29th, the Mentos refreshed our skateboard park in the community, and we had a good attendance. I want to note that Councillor Millette, Councillor Carr, Councillor Kelly, and Councillor Alsop were also there, and some of our senior staff. But this refurbishing was a big part of Manager Roland K. Brown and Manager Joe Reed was a big part in taking and designing this. And Mentos did this project totally with their funding. There was no Belleville funding in this was put all together. So I want to commend Mentos for coming forward. Belleville being the first small community to come out in the community, and right now the estimate is someplace between $50,000 and $70,000 to refurbish that. And Mentos was great. They come out and we're on their national website promoting Belleville for what we've done. And I just want to thank Mentos and the staff and all the councillors for coming out. And I'm sorry that the worship wasn't able to be there, but he had other engagements, and it was just a great project.
Great, thank you. And thanks for raising that, Councillor Thompson. I know there will be future projects that we'll be able to work with Mentos as well in that area, and that's very exciting. I was able to take a trip to the park on Friday last week. I had to go get my hair cut. It didn't take very long, so I had some extra time. And I went over and took a look at it, and I have to say that the new colors are vibrant and fresh, and they look good. We'll see how they weather with our climate here, but it really was refreshing to see. I guess like a Mentos, so it's good. Good, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, I would like to proclaim October as Canadian Autism Awareness Month. It is a time to establish and spread the importance of learning more about the features and social effects of autism. I'd also like to proclaim October 21st as the 21st Annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in the City of Belleville. It is a day of recognition for the many people who work providing early learning and child care services in our community. I'd also like to proclaim October 18th to 24th as Waste Reduction Week in the City of Belleville. During this week, environmental, nonprofit, and government organizations from across the country shine a spotlight on responsible production and conscious consumption. Since the last meeting, I and Councillors Sanderson and Councillor Feeney had the privilege to travel to Germany to not just meet with our sister city in Lahr, but also with one of our local businesses who prefers not to make an announcement about their establishment of a new company here yet. That will be coming soon, but they were very positive meetings. You know, we were very apprehensive, and that's why the trip was so tentative, and it was a last-minute situation in making that decision. And even on the day of our departure, I was not sure that we would still be able to do it, but I am very happy that we did. I can report that public health measures were very safe in that country. We were able to get a glimpse of our future. They're about, I would estimate, a month and a half to 2 months ahead of us in terms of the relaxations, and we have a bright future to look forward to. Fortunately, as part of the requirements coming back, we all had to get a COVID-19 test before we left, and we were all negative, so that was good. But it was really a great trip, and there'll be more information regarding the outcomes of that, including a potential visit from our colleagues in LAR in early 2022. On October the 8th, I was honored to greet a group of Tibetan activists engaging in a peace walk in light of the recent release of the two Michaels from Chinese prison. They are walking from Montreal to Toronto and pass through Belleville this Friday. It was my pleasure to show our support for human rights and democracy, and they were very pleased to, when I recounted the story, that one of the items that we were able to do when we were in LAR was we signed their golden book. They asked me to sign the golden book on behalf of the city of Belleville. And I told the group of Tibetans that I was in the company of Pope Benedict, who also signed it, but also the Dalai Lama signed it when they visited LAR. So they were quite happy to hear that, and it was a nice connection. On October the 8th, I was also thrilled to tour the brand new Hospice Quinte Care Center located in Quinte West on Highway 2. After many years of hard work and dedication from all those involved, it is exciting to see this project now completed and ready to provide enhanced end-of-life care for our residents. And I'm very proud that the City of Belleville really got the ball started with our contribution of $1 million in cash, which took this program to the next level. Congratulations to Jennifer May Anderson and all of the board members and the volunteers and the staff of that new state-of-the-art facility. It's an amazing success story, and it's a credit to our entire region. And I want to thank Councillor McCaw for representing me personally at that event and helping to open it. I'd like to also invite members of the public to attend an upcoming unveiling event that is taking place this Saturday, October the 16th. The newly constructed Memorial and Reflection Garden has been erected along the Bayshore Trail, just below the Belleville General Hospital on the Keegan Parkway. And this Memorial and Reflection Garden is in honoring and memory of Dr. James Bertram Collop, the person who was able to take insulin and refine it so that it could be used on humans. He was born and raised here in Belleville, and his work in the field of medicine has saved the lives of millions of diabetics, and we are excited to officially unveil this beautiful tribute on Saturday, October the 16th at 11 a.m. The public is invited to this outdoor COVID-safe event, and I encourage everyone to attend. And lastly, I want to again congratulate newly elected MP-elect Ryan Williams and MP-elect Shelby Cramp-Nyman on their new roles as our members of Parliament. We're looking forward to working with them both. We have very strong representatives representing us in Ottawa, and I'd like to congratulate all of the candidates who ran in the 2021 federal election. A well-done job by everybody, and we appreciate their efforts towards public service. With that, I will ask that for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2021-173, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on October 12, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 12th day of October 2021. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor, it's carried. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor, it's carried. Thank you.